This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News. I'm Sophie Ikenye in London.
And I'm watching live in Abuja, where counting continues in the presidential elections, but President Buhari's supporters are already rejoicing.
When is a new currency? That's what Zimbabweans are asking after they apparently got one. But does anyone know what it is?
For them to say RTGS is Zimbabwe, it's very vague. Because if you can't touch the money, which they say our local currency, which is physical, I think that's misleading.
Could these protests push Algeria's longest-serving president out of office? We'll have the latest. So in the program, eyes on the golden stallion of Yenenga. As Africa's film festival, FESPACO, continues in Burkina Faso, we hear from the man behind the first English-speaking film to win the biggest prize in 19...
When they saw the film, it looks as if he did a certain thing to them.
And in sport, the Confederation of African Football signs an agreement with the Egypt Football Association ahead of the Nations Cup this summer. Thanks for joining us on Focus on Africa from BBC World News. It's been 3 days since Nigeria went to the polls, and as we speak, votes are being counted. There is no news yet as to who is going to be Nigeria's president. There are preliminary results from some states, and in the last few hours, it's been confirmed that President Buhari's party has taken Lagos. But already some politicians are alleging vote rigging. The main opposition party, the PDP, have rejected the results. Well, Peter Okwoche joins us from the tallying center in Abuja. Peter, what's the latest on the vote tallying now?
Well, welcome to Abuja, Sophie. I can tell you that 26 states have so far been counted. President Buhari's APC party has won 14 of them, while his main opposition challenger, Atiku Abubakar, has won 12 states. Now, the 27th state is just being counted behind me, and that's President Buhari's home state of Katsina. And it looks likely, going by the way this voting has been going, that he will take that state as well. And he's got a pretty commanding lead now over Atiku Abubakar. He leads by over 2.6 million votes. I know, so those celebrations by his supporters might be premature, but he has quite a sizable lead and looks set to build on it.
Well, Peter, as all this is happening, we've heard that there have been allegations of vote rigging. What have you heard?
Indeed, Sophie, even this afternoon, the agent of the opposition PDP, who's in the hall here, he got up after one of the results was read out to protest, to make a formal, lodge a formal protest from his party saying they reject these results. And we're getting reports from other parts of the country as well. I mean, just this afternoon, in an extraordinary news conference, an interview given to the BBC, a returning officer, that's a worker with INEC, in Imo State, that's in the southeast region of Nigeria, he alleged that he was actually kidnapped by one of the politicians there and forced to give a fake result. Let's hear from Okechukwu Ibeauchi.
Some of his boys, out of anger or what, they were frustrated. See my hand. See it's swollen. See here. See, you can see it. So, but I was being careful not to be injured seriously. Since if I go in, they move me, and if I want to answer phone, they will hit me.
Right, Peter. So we are getting, of course, information that results from Lagos are in, and there are also reports that who voted, quite surprisingly, has been quite low.
Yes, I mean, the turnout has been quite low. Even here in Abuja, where I am, it seems the turnout was only 25% of those who had been accredited to vote last Saturday. So across the country, you get the general picture that, yes, the numbers are pretty low.
All right, Peter Okwoche for us there in Abuja. Thank you. Well, let's now take a quick look at other stories making the headlines across Africa and the rest of the world. 70 former members of the M23 Congolese rebel group have been repatriated from Uganda back to the DRC. Now, the group were defeated 5 years ago after rebelling against the army and seizing territory in eastern DRC. Now, several hundred members of the M23 ended up living in a Ugandan-run camp, and a total of 316 have now been voluntarily repatriated. Now, an Ebola treatment center in Congo that was attacked and set on fire has been forced to close. A relative of a patient died while trying to escape after suspected rebels attacked the center in Katwa, to the east of the country, at the weekend. Now, protests have been taking place in Somalia after the rape and murder of a 12-year-old schoolgirl. Police say she was tortured and her body was dumped outside her family's house. People have taken to the streets of Galkayo, and police say they have arrested a number of suspects. It's the first week that Zimbabweans have been using what's being regarded as, in some ways really, as a new currency. The RTGS dollar is designed to help the country overcome years of monetary crisis. It was introduced over the last few days, so its impact is still not clear. And there's a lot of confusion about what it is and how it works. Well, our reporter Shinga Inyoka has this explanation for us.
It's a catchy name. The real-time gross settlement dollar, or RTGS, a mix of bond notes, a quasi-currency introduced 2 years ago, and electronic money. So that's all the money that people have in their bank accounts and mobile wallets. It has never actually been billed as a new currency, but by the way the market is treating it, and by the fact that it even has its own foreign exchange rate, it sure feels like a new currency. So officially, it's not new, but unofficially, it's new.
Like in 2008, we had a crisis. So many people lost their monies. And today again, we have the similar case whereby things have just been said without any clarity on what is going to be the way forward. So I'm sure going forward, they're going to have a serious crisis, which is also going to bring uncertainty with regards to the prices.
For them to say RTGS is Zim dollar, it's very vague. Because if you can't touch the money, which they say our local currency, which is physical, I think that's misleading.
Zimbabwe hasn't had its own currency since 2009, when it ditched the inflation-hit Zimbabwe dollar in favor of the US dollar and a basket of international currencies. But in 2016, it introduced the bond note, nicknamed the Bola, and that was supposed to trade at 1:1 with the US dollar. But then there was a shortage of the greenback, and ordinary Zimbabweans and businesses started selling their bolas to buy the US dollar on the black market, and the rate shot up to as high as 4:1. The cost of goods and services also went up, and workers went on strike because the value of their salaries had been eroded. So officially, the bond note no longer has a fixed value. Rather, the market will determine the rate. The central bank has set an introductory rate at 2.5 to the dollar. Effectively, it means that those who earn in bond notes, their salaries have been halved. But the central bank believes that by selling businesses the US dollar at a lower rate, prices will come down.
Shinga Inyoka speaking to us there. Now let's go to Johannesburg and speak to Trinity Nkube. He's an economist and data analyst. He joins us from there. A mix of bond notes and electronic money. How does it work? And is it or is it not new?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. We are looking at a policy confusion when we're looking at this monetary policy stance that the central bank has taken. You can hear from the economic agents that they're not very confident with this new currency, or old currency, if you may. There's a lot of suspicion that this new currency is actually, the Zim dollar in a mask. So what we are having here is, it's just another currency, just in order to ease the pain that is the liquidity crisis, where we don't have enough funds, in the bank. So at the moment, the Minister of Finance is talking about, we are cash positive and whatnot. But I think more importantly, we have to take into account what we're looking at here. The public do not have confidence in this new currency.
So what do you think would be the best way to dealing with this cash crisis, if not trying to come up with new ways of raising currency or really coming up with currency?
I think Zimbabwe has been facing an economic crisis to such dangerous levels. What we would need is actually have a fundamental macroeconomic, environment with sound institutional frameworks where we actually reform. Because at this point, monetary policy is actually not independent. You are having here government, interfering with how monetary policy should be handled. So, I mean, if you look at South Africa, for instance, the monetary policy stance is actually independent. So this is something that the macroeconomic fundamentals need to be sound before they can introduce a new currency. At this point, I mean, the transparency and the accountability is just lacking, even in the manner in which this currency was actually introduced. I mean, it's just unheard of. In fact, if you hear from a lot of economic agents, a lot of people lost a lot of value who were actually deposited US dollars in the bank accounts, and you wake up and then you have this artificial exchange rate that is just arbitrary. Nobody actually knows, what's the data that comes around actually coming up with that 1 to 2.5.
I'm wondering what the impact will be on the black market now in Zimbabwe.
Well, this move was, a short-term solution in trying to alleviate the liquidity, crisis. However, the black market is always going to be there. The forces of demand and supply are always going to be there. In one minister actually alluded to, you can't fix one thing and then say the market forces can take care of things. If you're going to liberalize the market, if you're going to open the market, then open it. Do not do it conditionally. So I see the black market coming back. Zimbabweans are very creative people. They're very entrepreneurial people. So what will happen is that the parallel market is still going to come into force. I don't see this as a long-term solution.
All right. And Trinity Nkube, very interesting thoughts there from you. Thank you for taking time to talk to us and Focus on Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, the Ivory Coast has declared a war against plastic, and everyone is involved, the authorities as well as individuals. The BBC's Tatiana Mossot has more from the main city, Abidjan, where they have found innovative ways to tackle this growing problem.
We are in Abidjan, one of the most dynamic capitals in Africa. The capital has one of the highest rates of urbanization in Africa. This also comes with a negative impact on the environment. The city is largely affected by pollution, especially by plastics. According to official figures, more than 200,000 tons of plastic bags are produced each year in the country. Less than 20% of the plastic waste is recycled, while more than 50% gets littered in the city. And at the heart of this environmental disaster, a few people sift through the piles of waste to make money, like here in Atekube. Plastic waste management represents a whole sector of which hundreds of people work. These men and women collect plastics all over the city before sorting and washing them. The prices vary between $0.2 and $0.26 per kilo. The recycling informal industry has been growing tremendously. The plastic waste recycling market in Côte d'Ivoire is estimated at more than $2 billion, according to the National Agency for Urban Sanitation, not to mention more than 10,000 potential jobs. The authorities are trying to fight against pollution, particularly through a partnership with one of the largest recycling companies in the country. Coliba is an application that allows users to program the collection of their plastic waste. To retain the clients, they offer them gifts, such as internet packages or cosmetics.
It's very simple and well explained. Recycling and protecting the environment interests me, so seeing and doing it is important to me.
In Ivory Coast, every year we produce 5 million tons of waste, and just 10% are being recycled, and those goes to the landfill. Our main objective is to reach 2,000 active users at the end of this year, and so able to raise our collective from 2 tons per day to 5 tons per day.
Côte d'Ivoire has set the ball rolling in the battle against environmental pollution. It will take more initiatives like these to truly change mentalities when it comes to recycling, so that everyone develops the right habits and plays their part.
This is Focus on Africa from BBC World News. Still to come, Mimi Fawaz in sport. We catch up with the 5,000 meters world champion Hellen Obiri at the Kenya World Cross Country Championships.
Related activities for life. Are you, okay.
I'm Sophie Ikenye and you're watching Focus on Africa from BBC World News. The top stories on this program. In Nigeria, the incumbent Muhammadu Buhari has taken the lead in the race to become the next president, with more than half of all states declared so far. But there have been signs of low turnout across the country. In what's being regarded by some as a new currency, it comes into force in Zimbabwe. The government hopes the RTGS will boost the country's lagging economy. Well, let's now find out what's happening in the world of sport. Mimi.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Now, Tanzanian referee Odin Charles Mbaga has been banned from all football-related activities for life. FIFA's Independent Ethics Committee found him guilty of taking bribes. Mr. Mbaga has also been fined a sum of $200,000. No further details regarding the case are known. And elsewhere, it was a short reign as the Football Association of Zambia has announced it will not renew the contract of coach Sven van der Broek when it expires at the end of the month. He was tasked with qualifying the country for this summer's Africa Cup of Nations, but failed to do so. And let's stay with the theme of the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations. The Confederation of African Football has signed its agreement with the Egypt Football Association over the tournament, which kicks off this summer. Details haven't yet been released, but it's a big step in terms of organization. Now, remember, Egypt stepped in last month after Cameroon were stripped of the hosting rights due to delays in preparations. And back here in England, there are 4 English Premier League matches today with some African stars to watch out for. One of the fixtures sees Cardiff City take on Everton. Senegal international Oumar Niasse can't play tonight against his parent club, Everton. There's also the Leicester City v Brighton game. And Nigeria internationals Wilfred Ndidi and Kelechi Iheanacho look set to have Brendan Rodgers as their new manager at Leicester City, with the Celtic manager set to quit after holding talks with the club. To athletics, world champions Consensus Kipruto, Hellen Obiri and Elijah Manon Goi as well as two-time World Cross Country champion Jeffrey Kamworor, headline Kenya's 32-member team to this year's IAAF World Cross Country Championships in Denmark next month. The team was selected in a fiercely contested championship over the weekend in Eldoret, the country's athletics hub. This year, the World Championships on track and field will be late September. 5,000 meters world champion Obiri won the women's race to secure her first World Cross Country ticket.
Cross country is so much harder because it's 10K, and for me, I used to do 5K, so it was a bit compared for me, and the crowd was so amazing, so it gives me a morale of doing it. And as we know, this is the home of championships, so for me, I come from different regions, so I try to show them that even if you are coming from other areas, you can just do it. This is the only title I'm missing in my career, so I decided to, because as you can see, World Championships is far, like October, so I'm doing it like build up.
Let's stay with athletics. And finally, Gina Bass made history at the Rio Olympics in 2016 as the first Gambian woman to compete at the Games. She's also the Gambia's national sprint record holder. BBC Sport Africa have spoken to her about her hopes and ambitions.
In my country, they call me the poorest Olympian, but I accept it. I don't have a car. I don't have like a house. My name is Gina Bass. I'm the record holder in 100 and 200 meter. The government, they don't treat athletes like the way they treat the footballers. They give them a lot of money, but for us, we suffer before getting the allowance that they do give us. There's a moment that you feel like, why am I doing this? Because I'm not having nothing from it. So you feel like leaving, but it's because you love the sport. So you just say, let me just continue. My dream is to break the world record in 200 meters. But I know I will achieve it. I will be somebody tomorrow.
I love her spirit, and that's all the sport. Back to you, Sophie.
Thank you, Mimi. Thank you. Now, Africa's biggest film festival, FESPACO, is underway in Burkina Faso. As filmmakers gather on the 50th anniversary, one man whose film won the top prize, that's the Golden Stallion of Yenenga, is Kwao Ansa. His film, Heritage Africa, was the first non-French work to win the prize in 1989. It's set in colonial Ghana and tells the story of a man who embraces English culture and in the process abandons his African heritage and all that has real meaning to him. We caught up with Kwao as he reflects on his film.
Congratulations, Mr. Bosomfield. DC, sir.
Bosomfield was something I dreamt about for years. A story of colonialism, and it must be well woven, you know, to be convincing. The African issue has always been at the forefront of my mind. We've made so much contribution to the world civilization, and yet our children are made to think that we started this morning. I test marketed it with some people would consider big men in our society. When they saw the film, it looks as if it did a certain thing to them. If you take your time, build a good story, do a good selection of actors, it might live longer than just putting a camera before an artist, you know, and just shooting him or her for his or her beauty. A material called film must speak to, you know, the community.
My name is David Donto. I played the role of Papo Alote. It was an experience that perhaps was the first of its kind that I experienced as an actor in the film industry, that opened my eyes to the magnitude, the size of filmmaking.
Oh, and see an important message from Governor.
When I watched the media preview, I saw that this film had all what it takes to win awards because of the story, the quality, and the indulgence of all the artists and crew.
When this jury saw Heritage Africa, they were convinced that he deserved the Grand Prix. And I must tell you, the backlash was heavy. You know, in Burkina, I was very ill, down with malaria, and the prize that year was this big, and I couldn't carry it.
Well, don't forget you can get in touch with me on Twitter. I'm @CKenye. Let's focus on Africa for now. Thanks for your company. Bye.